Hello, and welcome to the RPM Show's YouTube page. I'm Adam Miller, your movies correspondent for the RPM Show, but for this video I will be switching from movies into television to discuss the HBO miniseries The Pacific, which you can catch Sundays at 9 o'clock if you get HBO. Well, for those of you who have HBO, I should say. Now, The Pacific is about World War II in the Pacific. It follows the story of three Marines, basically their journeys and adventures in against the Japanese in World War II are intertwined into this 10-part miniseries. Now, The Pacific is from executive producers Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg, who you may remember executive produced the 2001 HBO miniseries Band of Brothers. And that, of course, Band of Brothers being a huge critical and commercial success when it came out, led to a foregone conclusion that they would return to World War II but do it from the Pacific theater between America and the Japanese. So 9 years later, here we are for a series that I personally was waiting for a long time. Ever since they said they were in developing a series about the Pacific War, I've been very excited, I couldn't wait for it. Well, here we are. We are now halfway through the series. We've now seen parts 1 through 5, and 6 through 10 will follow in the upcoming weeks. And I will be, again, discussing 6 through 10 after they happen. But here I will talk about parts 1 through 5. Now, in parts 1 through 5, we have seen the battles of Guadalcanal, which would encompass the first two parts. Then in part 3, we went to Melbourne, Australia, which is where most of the Marines who were on Guadalcanal had some downtime or time for relaxation and, after the Guadalcanal battle. Then they went from there to Gloucester and Pavaroo, and then last week we saw them in Peleliu, which was a huge battle. And basically the three stories that this series intertwines are the stories of Bob Leckie, who was played by James Badge Dale, who you may remember from the second crossover of CSI Miami and CSI New York, where he played the villain that they were hunting down in Miami and then in New York. Then we have the second Marine is John Basilone, played by John Ceta, who is a relative unknown in the realms of Hollywood. And finally, Eugene Sledge, played by Joe Mazzillo, who you may remember from Jurassic Park as Little Timmy. Now, all these three Marines will be fighting alongside each other in World War II. However, James Badge Dale's character, Bob Leckie, is in it from the start. Eugene Sledge doesn't join the war until part 5, which was last week's episode, because in the beginning of the show, it was discovered he had a heart murmur or some other heart condition that kept him from joining the war when he wanted to. John Ceta fought alongside Leckie in Guadalcanal, but was just deported, sent back to San Francisco to sell war bonds, which is where he will be, I guess, from the show's entirety. I don't know. We'll see what happens in the upcoming episodes. Now, in terms of content, I have to say that this series is a lot more fast-paced than Band of Brothers, which in actuality is not really a bad thing. Band of Brothers was, in my opinion, alongside other stuff like John Adams or stuff like that, is to be one of the best written historical war miniseries ever produced. It's one of the best ever made. I make a point to watch it as much as I can. But The Pacific, I have to say, is not far behind. In my opinion, after these first 5 parts, is that now, of course, the introduction was, obviously given, but I have to say that I am, as a person, as I said, I was rooting for this series ever since I first heard they were going to be doing it. I was like, oh man, I really want this to work. I really want this to happen. I want this to really live up to its name and hopefully stand on its own alongside Band of Brothers as two enormous, very well executed, very well done, and ultimately phenomenal miniseries ever produced. And so far, I have not been let down yet. I mean, as I said, we're only in the first 5 parts, but it's getting a whole lot better. It is extremely intense in some spaces. It's a lot more fast-paced than Band of Brothers was. But the performances are extraordinary. I mean, you feel these people, you feel these guys for what they went through. I mean, the Pacific, with as much research as I have been able to do over the last couple of years, getting ready for this miniseries, was not exactly the best type of combat that the Marines who were there at that time had to endure, because it was basically fighting in the jungle against an enemy that refused to surrender. But with all that said, you know, with the upcoming 5 episodes, I am all ears, and I'm so looking forward to this. I'm totally confident that this will be probably the one of the best miniseries ever made, alongside Band of Brothers or John Adams or whatever. And I mean, I think when it's all said and done, it's a foregone conclusion that they should just give the Pacific all the Emmys right then and there. But then, until then, I will be back after the 10th episode to give an entire review on the entire miniseries. And if you want any more to know, keep up what's been going on in the Pacific, for those of you who have HBO or are obviously watching it, but I'm sure that they have online viewership of episodes that you can watch on the HBO's website or whatever, Fancast or Hulu. I'm not exactly sure how they do it, but anyhow, I look forward to your emails. For those of you who want to share your points of view, whether they're good or bad, can email me at adam@therpmshow.com, and check us out on our website, where I will be talking about the episodes as the shows progress on, of course, our actual radio show. But until then, stay tuned for more of the Pacific. I hope this little brief analysis was helpful for you. I know it's helpful. I know it's good for me, because I get to say how I feel about it. I mean, I'm very passionate about this show, because this is something I've been, as I said, been waiting for many years. After, I think, probably I can date it back to after seeing Band of Brothers. I'm like, I want to see World War II in the Pacific from the same people in this same type of vernacular. So until then, stay tuned. I will be back to talk about parts 6 through 10, which will be middle of next month. So until then, keep watching the Pacific and stay tuned for more updates. I'll talk to y'all later, and stay tuned for more of the RPM Show YouTube page. Adios, people.